Here's the thing that way too many women are never told. There are two ways that you can be attached in a relationship. One is a trauma bond and one is an attachment. A trauma bond can feel like love. It feels like a deep attachment. It even feels like chemistry. It feels like missing him. It feels like you can't breathe without him. It might feel like your body is screaming, stay with him, go back. And that's why so many women stay completely confused. Because if they feel that this is attachment, then it means something, right? And it does mean something, but it does not mean love. Sometimes the intensity that you can feel when you're in a trauma bond is actually not proof that the relationship was deep, but it's proof that your nervous system has really been trained to chase the relief from the exact same person who keeps creating the pain. That's the secret. Trauma bonds are not clinical diagnoses, okay? You're not going to find this as a formal diagnosis in the DSM, but the pattern is real. This is the most addictive relationship pattern in the world. And women know it in their bodies before they even know what to name it. I'm going to break down the difference between being deeply attached and being trauma bonded, and what professionals completely get wrong, why a trauma bond is honestly built on fear and hope, why it requires a power imbalance, and how to tell if you're missing the person or you're actually just craving relief from the cycle. My name is Lisa Sonnis. I'm a certified relationship coach, and I am an expert in the subject of trauma bonds and their recovery. I've written 5 books, and I travel the world internationally speaking on the topics of abuse, domestic violence, personality disorders, and trauma bonds. My work has helped thousands of women break trauma bonds, heal, and move on. So let's get into this deep attachment. Let's talk about what that feels like, because that can be really powerful, right? You miss them, you care, you feel connected, you want closeness, you feel bonded, but you exist in the relationship. I want to be super clear because trauma bonds are very different. In this kind of relationship that is healthy, even a little bit toxic, not abusive, you can speak, you can disagree, you can rest, you can say no. It doesn't feel like you are surviving the relationship. You are allowed to be imperfect and you're not going to be punished. This attachment doesn't actually require you to completely abandon yourself, okay? Toxic relationships are not good, but we're focusing here on abusive relationships now. In a trauma bond, which is really an unhealthy attachment that exists in any relationship where there's this mix of kindness and cruelty. One of the simplest ways to understand a trauma bond is understanding that it is built on both fear and hope. So fear keeps you alert and hope keeps you reaching, okay? So fear might be like, what if he gets angry? What if he leaves? What if he finds someone else? What if I get in trouble? What if he gets angry? What if I lose the good version? What if this is my fault? And then hope does this crazy thing like, maybe he'll change. Maybe he'll finally understand if I just explain this better. Oh, look, maybe the good version is coming back because he's been kind for the last few days. Maybe if I say it right, in the right way, at the right time. Maybe if I love him better. Maybe if he goes to therapy. So fear pulls you into survival and hope keeps you attached to this mythical possibility that he's going to be better. So together, fear and hope create this bond that feels urgent, right? There's no peace here. It's just urgent. Now, a trauma bond requires a power imbalance because this is where people kind of get this wrong. A trauma bond isn't we bonded over shared trauma, which is what an alarming number of therapists have said to my clients. A trauma bond is only what I've said. There are not multiple types of trauma bonds. You are trauma bonded to the perpetrator of abuse. They are not bonded to you. It's not loving someone too much. It's not just being anxious. It's not having a hard time letting a relationship go. It requires a power imbalance, right? One person literally has more control over the other. And that is where people get all tripped up because control can look very different. But they have control over the affection, approval, punishment, right? Whether you feel chosen, whether you feel safe in the relationship, all of this, you get little crumbs of tenderness and affection because that's the hook. That's the part that keeps you, that keeps the hope alive. The power imbalance that I'm describing matters because without that, you're probably talking about attachment pain. A trauma bond requires the power imbalance. Now, a lot of abusers will be like, there's no power imbalance. Now, I don't recommend that you go talking to your abuser about whether or not you're in a trauma bond or not. Okay, this is work for you to do on your own or with a coach or with a therapist. Because I speak to so many women who are being controlled that don't think they're being controlled. So this is not necessarily where I'm going to ask you to trust yourself on whether or not you're being controlled. And I have loads of videos that you can watch on what control can look and feel like that are much less obvious. But let's talk about this addiction that happens in a trauma bond. You're not addicted to the person, you are addicted to the relief. And this part changes everything because people think that they're addicted to the person, right? But it's actually relief. So you're addicted to the apology after the cruelty, the communication, the text, the affection after he's been silent treatmenting you for days, the affection after the rejection, all of this, right? When he comes back and says, I love you after he's been distant or ignoring you, that good mood that he shows when he comes home one day after multiple days of him seeming like just an angry, pissy man. You need to look at this like you were starving and somebody handed you the crumbs of a cracker. When somebody deprives you of something and then hands you just a little bit, the bond gets stronger. The person who hurts you becomes the person who temporarily removes the hurt. And this is such a trap because this person, this man who sometimes loves you and sometimes hurts you, he has become the pain and the comfort, the knife and the Band-Aid. And this is a very addictive cycle.